Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Welcome back to another episode of our series on entitled people, where some folks apparently think they can do no wrong and should always get what they want. In this episode, my friends, you're going to hear some pretty entitled stories. The first story is about someone whose friend treats them like an ATM and thinks they're entitled to their money whenever they need it. Who knows someone like that? The second story, oh boy, the second story, friends, is about an entire family who thinks it's funny to pick on someone's daughter at a park. And the third story is a short story about a child-free wedding. I hope you stay for the stories today and hit that subscribe button for more entitled people stories in the future. Let's dive in. A couple of years ago, I allowed a friend of a friend, who was down on her luck, to room with me for 2 years. We became good friends. In hindsight, the fact that her boyfriend at the time wouldn't help her find a place to live with him should have been a red flag for me. Fast forward a couple of years, and things changed. I lost my job, had to move back home across the country, and then got a new job. I still kept in contact with her, and since I could afford it, I sent her $100 every couple of months to help her out. She was still struggling, living with her mom and relying on government assistance for a while, so it didn't seem like a big deal. It was infrequent enough that it didn't bother me. After a while, though, I got tired of her constantly begging to borrow cash. I realized I hadn't tallied the total amount I'd sent her, and I was shocked to find it was well over $12,000 over the span of 8 years. So last year, I gave her an ultimatum. I told her, I'm cutting you off at the end of the year. You have 1 year to get your act together. If you do, great. You won't need to rely on me anymore. If you still need help, I'd be better off throwing money into a black hole. I thought I was helping you get back on your feet, not letting you live off me. Whatever the case, come January 1st, I'm not responding to any requests for money, period. Things were fine for the first half of the year, but then the latter half took a turn. She started requesting money more frequently, at first $500 in small chunks, like $40 here and $80 there. Then it got worse. One time, instead of asking first, she sent a money request from her bank, as if I were an ATM that would blindly send it along. If I didn't respond right away, she'd spam my phone, even though she knew I was busy working, in meetings, or commuting. Q. The phrase we've all seen in stories about entitled people, failure to plan on your part does not constitute an emergency on mine. Then there were incidents like her asking me to pay for her child's medication because the father forgot to pack it for his visitation. I told her, why should I be paying for this? It's not my kid. Shouldn't you be asking his dad? Another time, she asked for $80 for a bus ticket for her son to visit. The real kicker came this past Christmas. She had saved up enough money to buy a Nintendo Switch, not to handle surprise expenses or pay me back, but to buy an expensive gift for herself, claiming her son would benefit from it too. A few weeks after she bought it, she contacted me, saying that her boyfriend number 8, had broken into her apartment, stolen a bunch of stuff, including the Nintendo Switch, and pawned it. Thankfully, the police caught him, and I believe he's in jail now. However, she was still out a present, and her son would have nothing to open on Christmas. Instead of getting a cheaper present or asking friends and family to pitch in, she came to me first and asked for $200 toward a new Nintendo Switch. Obviously, I declined. Here's another kicker. She used the line, I can't believe my friend ruined my Christmas. I told my son he was getting a Nintendo Switch this year. That really got under my skin. Her ex ruined it by breaking into her apartment and stealing the gift, not me. I don't owe her anything. She's not entitled to my money, and I'm not an ATM at her beck and call. So far in 2020, she's still tried to borrow money, but I've held firm and haven't given her anything. I'm also never having roommates again, especially people with kids. This person needs to change her phone number and cut all contact. Her friend seems like a parasite who finally found a host to latch onto, and she took advantage of their generosity and kindness for 8 years. Some might say the person was also to blame for enabling her behavior, and I agree. There's a saying, you give someone an inch, and they take a mile. In this case, that mile was to the tune of $12,000. That's a lot of Nintendo Switches. Next story. For some background, I'm a father to a 9-year-old girl who's my whole world. Her mother and I split up 3 months after her birth when I found out she had been cheating. Naturally, I got a DNA test, and thankfully, my daughter is mine. The problem is that her mother doesn't care about her health. She feeds her whatever she wants, sometimes giving her coffee and donuts for breakfast. It's a mess. I've called Child Protective Services and the police for wellness checks in the past, but it's gotten nowhere. Since she was about 4, my daughter has had a weight issue. Now, on to today's story, which happened about an hour ago. My daughter is well aware that she's overweight and gets teased constantly at school. So, I've made it a habit to visit her at least 3 times a week for lunch, because she asks me to come so she can eat in peace without kids picking on her. This weekend was her weekend with me, and she's taken a liking to basketball, which I think is great. This morning, she asked me to go to the park down the road to shoot some baskets with her. Of course, I said yes, and we went. When we got there, I parked and immediately noticed 2 kids sitting at one of the park tables, cussing and throwing a basketball back and forth. I paid them no mind, and we walked to an unused court. I also noticed 2 adults, who turned out to be their parents, about mid-30s, sitting on a park bench about 30 feet away, smoking and messing around on their phones. We started shooting hoops, and my daughter was having fun when I heard it. Kid number 1 said, "Get off the court, fatty. We were about to use it, and you're too fat to play anyway. Look at you. You can't even make a shot." Kid number 2 chimed in, "Yeah, maybe go home and use a treadmill." They both started laughing. They said this with me right in front of them, and I was furious. I'm a big guy, about 6'1", 190 pounds, and while I don't like confrontation, I'm not afraid to engage if necessary. I said, "Okay, first off, both of you kids watch your mouths and do not insult my daughter again. You really think it's okay to insult someone over something so sensitive and think it's a laughing matter? Your parents should be ashamed for raising you wrong." That's when the parents heard me and joined in on what was apparently fun for them. The mother said, "Who the heck do you think you are, yelling at my sweet boys?" The dad added, "Yeah, you better watch what you say, dude." I told them, "Your precious boys are standing here insulting my daughter, calling her fat. You two really think it's okay to insult a child younger than them over something she's already bullied about at school? We're here trying to get some exercise, play basketball, and have fun. I don't need to deal with you and your little punk kids insulting her." The entitled mom looked at me, unfazed like I was reading the specials at a restaurant, and said, "So what's wrong with what they said? Look at her, she's fat, isn't she? They're being honest." Then they all started laughing, 2 teens and 2 adults laughing at my little girl while she stood behind me trying so hard not to cry. I lost it. I said, "All right, listen, you two," pointing at the parents, "are trash parents. So they're being honest, and that's okay? Fine, here's some honesty. Your sons are bullies, and I promise you eventually another kid will stand up for themselves and knock their teeth out. You both are absolutely horrible parents for thinking what your kids are doing is acceptable." The dad chimed in, "Watch what you say to my wife and sons. Your daughter is fat, deal with it." I was raging at this point and said, "Watch what I say, or what, bud? What are you going to do? You and your perfect little family seem to think honesty is fine no matter what, so I'm telling you, you're all just bullies. Unlike my daughter, I'm an adult and won't put up with any more of your nonsense, especially if any of you say another word to my daughter. I swear you'll regret it." Looking back, maybe I shouldn't have said "you'll regret it," but I was furious and in protection mode. I continued, "We're not leaving. My daughter just wanted a fun day at the park, and I won't tolerate another negative word against her. Test me if you want." The dad and mom looked at each other, and finally the mom scoffed, "Let's go, we're going home." They started walking away down the street toward their house, and I watched them most of the way because I had a feeling they'd say something else. Sadly, I was right. When they were about 100 feet down the street, the dad yelled, "Have fun with your fat daughter, punk!" I was about to respond when my daughter said, "Daddy, just let them leave. Now we can play alone." She was smiling now, and I could tell she was okay and just wanted it to be over. She told me she's sick of people picking on her and that she's glad I stuck up for her because nobody at school does. I told her always, "Hun, don't worry, let's just have fun. I'll always be there to help you when I can." I gave her a hug, and we had a great time for the next hour shooting hoops before heading home. Thanks for reading, friends, and don't put up with bullying. This story breaks my heart so much that parents out there would let their kids say mean things to a 9-year-old girl and then join in. The father definitely took the high road here because I know many people would have ended up in a cop car after teaching those awful parents a lesson. Absolutely disgusting. Next story. My fiancé and I are getting married in a few months, and we've decided we don't want kids at the wedding. Kids are loud, they run around, and they break things. We don't want to deal with that on a day meant to celebrate our relationship. We've assigned the roles usually performed by children to our beloved pets. My dog will be the flower girl, my fiancé's dog will be the ring bearer, and my 2 cats are co-maids of honor. Our friends, my boyfriend's sister, and my brothers think it's adorable. Our other relatives? Not so much. My boyfriend's parents said they thought it was strange and were hoping his cousin would be the ring bearer, but they've accepted it because they want us to be happy. My parents, on the other hand, threw a fit and accused me of placing animals above children. I calmly explained that this is my fiancé's and my wedding, and it's not their place to decide who's part of it. Our pets are well trained and well behaved, which is more than I can say about our relatives' kids. My parents decided to boycott the wedding because I refused to follow a certain outdated wedding tradition, the father giving away the daughter. My dad told me that since I was robbing him of his moment, there was no reason for him to be there. Good riddance. One of my childhood friends, a mother of 3, was going to be a bridesmaid but was horrified when she learned that my dog and cats would be in the wedding party. She thought her 3 ill-mannered kids should have had that honor. She threatened not to come to the wedding, so I made it easier for her by taking her name off the guest list. My cousin, who has 2 kids, told me rather smugly that she would bring her kids anyway. She said that when she and her family were there, I wouldn't be able to do anything about it. I told her I'd have her husband, and their kids escorted out by security, and that shut her up. My fiancé's friend asked him to make me replace my dog with his daughter as the flower girl. He was warned never to bring that up again. This wedding day will be a special day for my fiancé and me, and we won't let other people's entitlement ruin it. Here's something parents need to know. Kids hate going to weddings. I remember when I was little, my parents used to drag me and my brothers to weddings, and we hated it. It was always a boring few hours sitting at a table, unable to run around and play. We did not find it fun at all. Next story. For some background, I live in Southern California, very close to the beach. Needless to say, I encounter a lot of locals and tourists. On the right side of my property, across the street, there are shops, a cafe, and a bus stop. On my property, I have a hollyberry bush, which is poisonous. The berries taste like cherries and have a cinnamon-like aftertaste, so someone unfamiliar with the plant would have no idea they're dangerous. The side effects of these berries include nausea, disorientation, diarrhea, vomiting, and severe stomach cramps. Due to my house being on the historic registry and nature protection laws, I can't just remove the bush because some birds eat from it. I know the berries and leaves aren't poisonous to certain species of birds and other animals like squirrels and chipmunks. Because of this, I have 2 signs that say, "Do not eat in danger," with a skull and crossbones. The fact that I have a sign with danger and a hazard symbol deters most people, except for this persistent mom and her son last morning. It was around 10:30 in the morning and I was taking my trash out. The mom, who looked about 40 years old, had 2 kids with her, a teen, probably 14 to 16 years old, and a little boy who looked 6 to 8 years old. The mom and the boy were the entitled and foolish ones here, but the teen girl was actually nice. The boy said, "Mom, look, berries." The mom replied, "I didn't realize berries grew here. Let's get some." I asked her to read the signs and pointed out that they say not to eat the berries. She scoffed and said, "It's not like you need all these berries. You probably put up the signs so people don't eat them. You're greedy." The boy asked, "Mom, when are we going to have the berries?" She replied, "Right now." The teen girl chimed in and said, "Mom, no, I think they're poisonous." But before she could finish her sentence, the mom and son broke a branch off the berry bush. They started running, scarfing down the berries, and went to the bus stop across the street, with the teen girl reluctantly following. I was yelling to get their attention for nearly 20 minutes, but after the mom and boy started getting overly sweaty and acting strange, the teen came back to talk to me. I told her those berries are poisonous and that I tried to warn her mother and brother, but it was too late. I comforted her, saying they'll live, but they're going to be very, very sick soon. I went to my house to get seltzer tablets and water bottles to help. By the time I came back, both the mom and the son had finished all the berries, and the boy had thrown up all over his shirt. The mom came back, showing obvious signs of vomiting herself, and started yelling at me. When I pointed to the sign that says "Danger" and "Do not eat" and said this was her fault, she made a rude gesture and left. The teen just said, "Sorry." I gave her the seltzer tablets and went into the cafe to get paper towels to clean up her brother, but by the time I returned, the mom had vomited too. They all got on the bus, and I haven't seen them since. This has got to be one of the most entitled things I've ever heard. "Oh, just let me eat these berries. You're just saying they're poisonous so people don't take them all." And then she comes back to yell at the original poster for letting her eat those berries. Oh my goodness, guys, I can't get enough of these stories. I really can't. Next story. This next story doesn't involve me too much, but I know quite a lot about my entitled cousin's actions and behavior through stories that my family members and my cousin's husband have told me. Ever since we were little kids, my cousin, the good cousin, and I have been best buds. We lived only a few miles away from one another, so we would bike to each other's houses, play in our backyards, and enjoy video games. My cousin comes from an extremely wealthy family. Her dad, who's my uncle, started a business when he was 20 years old, and it's been super successful, to the point where there are now several large locations across the globe. Even though this family is incredibly rich, they live a very modest lifestyle. They live in a small 2-story home on a few acres of land, nothing crazy extravagant. The one lavish thing they do is go on a cruise every 2 to 3 years. My cousin is one of 3 children. She has an older brother and her identical twin sister, who we'll call the entitled cousin. You may think the good twin evil twin scenario is only seen on TV, but my cousin and the entitled cousin are the real-world equivalent. One is kind and generous, while the other is selfish and entitled. The entitled cousin has always had this idea in her head that because her dad was so wealthy, she didn't have to lift a finger in life to get what she wanted. Good things just came to her, and she'd always rely on her dad's money. Despite getting pretty much everything they wanted growing up, my cousin and her brother never had entitled attitudes. The entitled cousin was always the selfish standout of the family. Her attitude only got worse as time went on. Eventually, the entitled cousin got married and had a kid, a boy. Her husband is just as unpleasant as she is, so they were kind of made for each other. The entitled cousin always wanted to rub her child in my good cousin's face, like she wanted to gloat about having a kid before her sister did. My good cousin had a history of bad relationships, and one time, she went to her sister for advice after her boyfriend had left her. The entitled cousin had the nerve to blame her weight, and not using makeup to make herself look more attractive. My good cousin was afraid to date anyone after that relationship disaster, but that changed when she finally met the man of her dreams, who we'll call the good husband. I met him personally, and he's a giant teddy bear of a guy. 2 years after they met, they were engaged. The entire family was thrilled that my good cousin finally found the man of her dreams, and her father wanted to throw a ton of money to help her pay for a beautiful wedding. For reference, the father did the same thing for the entitled cousin when she got married. Yet the entitled cousin was not happy about how extravagant her sister's wedding was going to be. My good cousin wanted to be married at Niagara Falls and invite basically everyone she knew, and her father was going to pay for pretty much all of it. The entitled cousin was furious. She talked to their father about the wedding, and how all the money being spent better not interfere with the family's upcoming cruise. Yes, they still went on cruises together every few years, despite the children being grown and having families of their own. Their father said that because the wedding overlapped with the dates of the cruise, the family cruise would have to be pushed to the next year. The entitled cousin practically exploded. She blamed my good cousin for taking the cruise away from her and her precious boy, who was 5 years old at this point. She said she had already told her son they were going on a cruise, and now he was going to be so upset because his selfish aunt wanted to get married instead of giving him a happy vacation. She demanded that my good cousin reschedule the wedding for the next year so they could go on the cruise instead. My good cousin, who's normally not a confrontational person, had had enough of her sister's attitude and told her that if she wanted to go on the cruise, she should go alone and pay for it herself. The entitled cousin's ranting went on for weeks, flipping back and forth between blaming her sister for ruining her son's year and begging her father for money to go on a cruise because she and her family deserved it. She drove my good cousin to tears, and my cousin ended up calling me for advice. My only advice to her was to give the entitled cousin, who normally gets everything, nothing. By nothing I mean don't invite her to the wedding, as most sisters would. My good cousin wanted the entitled cousin to be one of her bridesmaids, as she had been a bridesmaid at the entitled cousin's wedding. Not inviting her would be a major upset for everyone involved, but it might just be the best thing to teach the entitled cousin a lesson, so she did just that. My good cousin called her sister and flat out told her that if she didn't change her attitude, she was not invited to the wedding. The entitled cousin blew up, shouting at my good cousin, calling her all sorts of names, and again blaming her for the cruise being cancelled. My good cousin hung up and decided not to invite her to the wedding. The wedding was amazing, and I ended up being the bridesmaid to take the entitled cousin's place. It's been a few years now, and my good cousin and her good husband have a beautiful girl and a baby boy on the way. The entitled cousin is still in their lives and is as unpleasant as ever, but she doesn't come to her father begging for anything anymore. After her behavior toward him and my good cousin, he threatened to leave her out of the will if she continued to pester either of them. Maybe now that she's not going to get everything handed to her on a silver platter, she'll change her attitude for the better, or at least that's what we all hope will happen. You know, it might have been a good thing for her not to be at the wedding anyway. You don't want a jealous sibling ruining your special day out of envy. Who knows what she might have done? She probably would have demanded her sister smile less or be less happy on her own wedding day or something. Who knows? Next story. Okay, so a little bit of background. Where I live, there's a car show held in memory of someone in our town who died of brain cancer, and all the proceeds go to cancer research. The show is held at a raceway nearby, where everyone is welcoming. Now to the story. I had entered my car into the car show and paid extra for it to go around the track during the timed event. The car show part was a few hours before the warm-up and the time trials, where anyone entering could do up to 3 practice laps to get used to the course. This is where the kid came in before the practice lap started. The kid said he liked my car and started asking me about it and how I got it. All was normal. My family, who was with me, said I should let him sit in it, and I agreed but thought I could take it a step further and let the kid sit in the passenger seat during one of my warm-up laps. I told him I would let him go around the track with me, provided I had his parents' permission. When he heard that, his face lit up, and he went to get his parents. I thought all was normal until this happened. I was waiting around for the kid and his parents to show up. I hadn't moved from my spot and was doing some rechecks on my car before I went out. 20 minutes had passed, and I thought it was taking a little long for him to come back with an answer, but I decided to wait a little longer just in case he was lost. The next thing I knew, another 20 minutes had passed, and then another 20 minutes. I had waited an hour for him to show back up, and I needed to get on the track. My car was ready an hour ago, and I had already gotten permission from the race organizers to have a young passenger for 1 lap of the practice run. I had gotten tired and went to start the car when the kid showed up with his parents. They instantly asked me if I was up to something. I told them I just wanted to give the kid a chance to see what it was like in a road race car, just like how someone else let me when I was his age. After hearing that, they took a few steps back and started talking. Tired of waiting, I told them it was the final call. It's either a yes or a no, and I needed to get on the track now. They finally gave him permission. I had him get in, put on the 5-point harness, and we headed for the first practice run. I told him to hold on and not scream while I was driving. He seemed to understand, but during the lap he did the exact opposite. Once it was over, I had a headache but was still trying to be nice and asked him if he had fun. He said he did and that he wanted to go again. I told him that from now on I had to be by myself. He started yelling at me and got out of the car, slamming my door behind him. I had had enough at that point and just went to do my last 2 laps. Once they were over, we stopped for a quick break, and this is where everything went downhill. First, the parents came up to me and yelled at me for not letting their kid go again. I explained to them that I technically wasn't allowed to, and only got permission to do 1 lap with him. They were livid. The next thing I knew, one of the organizers told them that their kid could go around the track in one of the rental cars, but it would cost $300. The kid said no, he wanted to go around in my car, but I said he couldn't. The next thing I knew, the father was yelling at me. I had lost it at that point and told them to leave, but the organizer said what they said was fine, and we didn't need to make this worse. I left with the organizer to avoid more confrontation. Half an hour later, the time trial was about to start, and guess who came back? The mother did. She said she was sorry and wanted to talk. Then she said, "I'll give you $400. She was offering $400 for my entire car. I told her no and to get out of here. The next thing I knew, the dad came up and said, $700 for the car. I said no, and the car's not for sale, especially at that price. The father responded, saying that my sad rusted piece of junk wasn't worth more than $1,000, and that I would get more from crushing it than selling it. I just left. I hopped in my car and drove right past them. Once the time trial was over, I went to park in my spot and found my girlfriend and grandfather being talked to by some police officers while the couple were pointing at me. 2 officers came over and told me to get out of the vehicle. I did so and asked what was going on. The couple had actually called the police, claiming that I stole their car and that I had inappropriate intentions when I had their precious boy in the car. I told the officers that the car was in my name, and I had footage from the camera in my car that I used for studying my driving techniques. They asked to see the footage, and I willingly showed them. In the end, I hadn't done anything wrong and had proof of purchase for my car. I haven't heard anything from them since, but now one of the officers from the incident has become a good friend who I go drag racing with. So at least something good came out of this. These stories are a wild mix of entitlement, audacity, and satisfying comeuppance, and I have strong feelings about each. The roommate saga is infuriating. I've helped friends financially, but this woman's relentless mooching, $12,000 over 8 years, is next level. Her audacity to blame OP for her Christmas woes after buying a Nintendo Switch instead of essentials shows zero accountability. I respect OP's firm boundary. Cutting her off was necessary. It's a lesson in enabling behavior. Kindness shouldn't mean being a doormat. The basketball court story breaks my heart. As a parent, I'd be livid if anyone bullied my child, let alone adults joining in. The parents' callous defense of their kid's cruelty is disgusting. I admire OP's restraint. I might have lost it worse. The daughter's resilience and OP's protective stance are inspiring, but it's tragic she faces such cruelty at 9. Bullies, especially adults, deserve harsher consequences. The No Kids wedding story resonates with me. I've seen kids disrupt events, and OP's choice to feature pets is adorable and personal. The parents' and friends' entitlement, demanding their kids take precedence, is absurd. I'd have uninvited anyone trying to dictate my wedding too. OP's firm stance ensures their day stays special, and I love the pet roles, way cuter than tantrums. The Holly Berry incident is jaw-dropping. The mom's dismissal of clear danger signs and blaming OP after eating poisonous berries is peak entitlement. I feel for the teen daughter stuck with such reckless parents. OP's attempt to help with Seltzer was kind, but their consequences were self-inflicted. Signs exist for a reason. The entitled cousin story is maddening. Her jealousy over her sister's wedding and whining about a postponed cruise screams selfishness. I'm thrilled the good cousin stood her ground, uninviting her. The wedding's success and the father's threat to cut her from the will are perfect. Entitlement doesn't win here. The car show story is unreal. The kid's tantrum and the parents' outrageous $400 offer for a car, then accusing OP of theft, show delusional entitlement. OP's calm handling and video evidence saved the day. Befriending the officer is a bonus. These stories highlight how standing firm against entitlement delivers justice. That, my friends, is our Entitled People series. If you guys enjoyed the stories today, do hit that thumbs up button. If you missed the last episode of Entitled People, check it out if you haven't. I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you.